Hello YouTube. So I thought I'd do a walk around on my shiny new toy. For those of you who haven't kept track of my motorcycle history, I had a BMW K1200 GT which I really liked. I liked it so much that I couldn't find anything to replace it with, which means I kept it longer than I normally keep motorcycles. This is my company bike, so my company and the company owns the bike, and it's the one I use for sort of transport purposes basically. And so I had a K12 GT, 2007 model, and it was the Vines demonstrator before I got it. That's where I first rode it, and I thought, oh, this is brilliant, I'll have me some of this. It was, you know, all day touring, comfortable. Took me all around Europe in great comfort. And then when you found a twisty road, you could basically turn it into a dirty great sports bike. It was a Grand Tourer in every sense of the word. Fast, comfortable, competent, and the fact that it kept shitting itself every 5 minutes wasn't really a problem whilst it was under warranty. But when I started getting the bills, it started to get a bit unpleasant, and you know, there was nothing to replace it with because BMW stopped making it. They upgraded it to a K13 GT, K1300 GT, which wasn't better enough to make it worth paying the exorbitant cost of changing. And then they stopped making it because the 1600 replaced it, and the 1600 is, you know, it's very good at, you know, it's a very competent piece of engineering, but you know, it's spectacular what something that heavy can be made to do. There's a little video reviewette I put on my channel, but no, it's not a replacement for the K12 GT, and no one else is making anything. And all, you know, I kept waiting for alternatives, and nothing came. So all was going well until 2013. I say going well, I mean I was enjoying the bike, and then the handling went off drastically. About the time I was going to put it in for a service down in Sussex, I put it in for a service expecting to be told I may need, you know, a new rear shock or something, and I got back a quote for replacement of suspension front and rear and a few other bits, £5.5 grand for a 36,000 mile old motorcycle. So yeah, it was actually made more economic sense to part the thing out for scrap than it did to repair it and keep on riding it, because the bike wasn't worth that much. So from suddenly from having a motorcycle I really liked, I had to hire a car to get home, which is that's a bit of a bugger. And I've been looking to replace it ever since. So in the interim, being as how I was, as you are, looking for a bike to keep me going, I bought an old Trophy 1200, which some of you will have seen in the Art of Turning Left. It was being sold locally to me down in Wales, and yeah, it was an eBay special, you know, as you do, and it looked all right if I squinted, and you know, how bad can it be? And I had a quick look at the fork legs, and they weren't pitted, you know, lots of quick looks at things, not a proper look at things. And it was cheap enough, and I thought, oh well, that'll do, I'll get that then. And I got it home and then realised that I bought a complete pile of shite, and spent the next several months fettling it, sourcing bits, new fork legs, because the bugger had loosened the fork legs and turned them through 180 degrees. so that all the pitting was hidden at the back, you know. Yeah, so there was that, and then rebuilding the brakes and new stainless steel pistons, and by the time I added it all up, it was, just say it was a lot of money. I could have bought a much better bike for the money I ended up spending. And at the end of the whole process, it was still a shed, and then it let me down, and I had to go to Brussels to work on a Triumph Street Triple. So that turned out to be rather better than it could have, than I feared it was going to be, when I discovered that the trophy wasn't going to play, and I was suddenly looking at doing a couple of thousand miles on a naked bike in December. Anyway, that was fine. In fact, I did 2 trips like that. So there you go. Top tip from me, Triumph Street Triple is a really good all-weather tourer, apparently. Anyway, enough of that. Brings me to today. Last weekend I rode the shed of a 1200 trophy. Insert image of 1200 trophy shed here. Up to Stoke-on-Trent, to Stafford-to-Triumph, and came home with a mug and a t-shirt, and also this beast. Now, I saw this thing online, and it's got 10,000 miles on it, which would make it a second-hand bike, except that it was owned by the Triumph factory. Now, they say it was a staff bike, and because I'm a cynic, I'm assuming it was actually one of the press fleet, and therefore it has been wheelied by a number of very competent journalists and some less competent ones repeatedly. But if they broke it, it's probably been fixed really well. And because it came straight from the Triumph factory, I can claim the VAT back on it, which means that it's as good as a new bike to me. That's pretty important from my point of view. So what have I bought? Well, this is a Trophy SE. I've had a few extras on it. It came with some extras anyway. Some of them are things that should be there as standard, like that little mudguard extension down there. And it's got an alarm immobiliser fitted, and I've got a U-lock under the seat. It came with heated seats and heated grips. And standard, these things have cruise control, and it's got a radio, and it'll an iPod dock, so it'll play my tunes, and I have my sat-nav socket mounted on the bracket, and yeah, it's got the top box isn't on it at the moment, that's back in the hotel room. As I said, heated seats, heated grips, cruise control, tyre pressure monitoring. Now I had that added because the tyres, they put some, the dealership had put some Avon Gripmaster tyres or some shite on it because they were going to go around Europe on it, and because they're a motorcycle dealer and they're very tight. So I had those, and they'd filled them with glue. So I had those taken off. I had these Pilot Road 4s fitted, and some gloop. And the gloop that they put in the tyres is gone, and it's got tyre pressure monitoring now, so I don't even have to check the pressures myself. I'll just look at the screen, which is good. You know, all the touring mod cons that you could possibly want. The screen goes up and down like a good one. Let me just disable the alarm. The screen goes up and down, push a button, and it remembers where it was when you parked the bike. Now in this case it was right at the bottom of its travel, so it hasn't gone anywhere. But as I say, if it was up there, yes, sorry about the interruption there. The Bluetooth kicked in as it started playing a bit of Guns N' Roses from my phone, and stopped me filming. Oh well, never mind. Yes. Right, okay, so as I said, I've got a display that adjusts different things you can see. Yeah, not all of them work when we're not moving. That's the suspension settings, average speed on the last trip I did, and yes, Very nice.
Half wondering if Nigel Owen's going to kick it himself. He's done everything else for the Wallabies in the last 2 minutes. He's going to fly off with the other eye for Andrew Murphy. Come on, Meg, you can do it. You can do it this afternoon. 12.5 minutes. Goal in there for Australia. Obviously, you never know quite how the scrum is.
And when you turn the power off, the screen parks itself nicely. Okay, so things to get used to on this bike. It does ride very light. It does ride very much more light. Let me try that in English. It rides like a much lighter bike than it is. It's you know, it's a heavy motorcycle. It's not as heavy as your average Harley, for example, but it's, you know, it's by a long way. But it's not light either. It's, in American money, it'd be like £600. I don't know. Anyway, but it's very agile. It clicks around with great alacrity, particularly with the suspension in sport mode. Fast, nothing like the K12 GT, but quick enough anyway. I mean, it's not going to give a sports bike any trouble, or even a sports tourer, I think, but it's got plenty of grunt and get up and go. Just, you could always ask for a bit more, and like I said, the K12 GT was a proper rocket ship, and this really isn't, unless you drop it 3 gears and give it some. But it pulls from nothing, and you know, it's a good, powerful, fast, competent, decent handling motorcycle. Things to get used to, apart from having a radio on a motorcycle, for Christ's sake. What next? An ashtray? This is a bit sort of ST 1100 with the mirrors down there under the bars, but it works. They work down there really well. They work down there an awful lot better than the average ones that all you can see in your shoulders. So yeah, I'm liking that. What I normally do is I normally put blind spot mirrors up here somewhere on here, and I don't know how they're going to work on this, but I might give that a go. But you don't really need them because you're so upright that really, you know, just looking a shoulder check takes no time at all. So it's not a question of having to sort of take an arm off the bar and peer under your armpit. It's as simple as just turning your head. Screen is big. It's not as big as the extended screen I had on the K12 GT. I can put a bigger screen on this though. Don't think I will, but the option is there. With the screen up, it's pretty protective all the same. What more to say? Oh yes, there's a power socket in the top box, which is pretty impressive. And yeah, there's a switch for the heated seat. Oh, what hasn't worked? Well, this bike is the same underneath all this skin. It's the same bike as the Triumph Explorer, amazingly. And the Explorer, so it's the same engine, transmission, underlying chassis, which is a bit odd for such a very different, radically different motorcycle. But what that means is that when I saw that Givi had a kit, you know, that I'm a big fan of the Givi Tank Lock tank bag, and I saw there was a kit. There was an adapter kit for the Triumph Explorer, but they didn't list one for the Trophy. So I took a punt and bought one for the Explorer and had them fit it, and it does fit. Well, they've had to faff around with spacers because of this ridge around here to make it go on, but it's gone on fine. It fits fine. The tank bag clips on absolutely fine, and then all of this means I get about 2 degrees of steering lock, which means that I was quite likely to drop it before I got it out of the car park. So I'm afraid that's a fail. So this is coming off, and I've got a Triumph tank bag on order. The Triumph tank bag clips in here and here, and looks okay, and it's got big cutouts to accommodate the radio stuff and the handlebars, so it doesn't interfere with the steering lock. So yeah, fair enough. Lesson learned, a mistake. And if you happen to have a 1200 Explorer and you want a mounting kit for a Givey tank lock bag, then drop me a note in the comments and I'll come back to you on it. Okay, so yeah, there you go. I'll save my extended rant about BMW for another time. But for the meantime, I have a new toy and I doth like it. And that's a wrap. Farewell. Okay, one more thing whilst I'm on the subject, and the reason why I particularly like this bike, I mean, the fact it's nice to ride and it's a triple and it's got a bit of character, and you know, as I said, it's not as nice, it's not as dynamically satisfying a motorcycle as the BMW K12 GT for all of that. But the big difference between this bike and the BMW K12 GT and the R12 GS I had before it, and every other BMW, and the reason why I'm not going to be buying a BMW, having said I won't do the BMW rant, is that on the BMW, when the damping went away in my rear and my front and rear shocks, my ESA shocks, the electronically powered ones, the only option I had to maintain the functionality and replace them, obviously I couldn't go and buy a set of Hagons and put them on because they don't have the electronic bits on them. So I had to buy the BMW part, and they don't just sell the damper, you have to buy the entire suspension subsystem, which is why I ended up with a £5,000, staring down a £5,000 bill. New suspension subsystem front and rear. You can't just buy a bit. I mean, I remember when I had the R1200 GS before that, and the little clip that holds the headlight in the headlight bulb in the holder went ping when I was changing it on the roadside in France and vanished. And when that happened, and I had to stick the headlight in with hold it in with a roll of balled up tissue paper. And I thought, it's no problem, I'll go and buy a new clip. You can't buy one. The only solution for getting that clip from BMW is to buy an entire headlight unit. Yeah, really? No, not happening. So there you go. It's something the EU allows companies to do these days as part of this this competition thing, something that the motor manufacturers lobbied for. Most manufacturers could do it, most motorcycle manufacturers don't. BMW, on the other hand, do. They do it for their cars, they do it for their bikes. You know, now with the cars it's a bit harder because, you know, an alternator is an alternator, so it can be hard for them to lock things down, but they doesn't stop them trying. Much easier with motorcycles, and BMW have done that. Triumph, every nut, bolt and screw on this motorcycle, every single piece has a part number, and you can order it. You know, if that switch, if I break that switch, I can buy the switch. If I mean, down to that level. If you look at the parts fiche for the rear ESA shock on this bike, it's a forest of individual pieces and part numbers, and you can, last time I checked, you can buy every single one. And so if the damping in your shock goes off, you can just buy the damping bit and you can bolt your existing electronics to it. BMW, not so much. BMW, your motorcycle is scrap, because if it's not worth £5,000, it's not worth fixing. So that's one of the massive attractions of this bike over the BMW that it replaces. In some ways, I'm sorry about all that, because as I said, the K1200 GT was a lovely motorcycle, but BMW don't care what punters want anyway, otherwise they wouldn't have stopped making it. those nicely appointed showrooms with the beautiful decor must be paid for somehow, and apparently it's paid from giving people £5 servicing bills or quotes for. So there you go. Right, now I really am done. Thank you very much.